2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
Let's take a little travel. Let's do a little time travel. We're going to go back to the year 1977. Star Wars was the #1 movie. Godfather was a hit. A gallon of gas was only 36 cents, and Jimmy Carter was president. And a young man, he was about 5 years old, named Tom Daves, got his real estate license. So on the show today, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Tom Daves. Thanks for being on the show, Tom.
Hey, great to see you. All right, Johnny. How's it going, Matt?
Hey, I'm here too. So, do you look fondly back at the year 1977?
I really do.
What do you remember? What stands out to you in the year 1977?
Well, in 1977, if you remember, it was the movie Saturday Night Fever.
That's right.
Staying Alive. So, of course,
John Travolta. Did you dress up like John Travolta?
I did. I had my Angel Flights. I had my Famolari shoes. I had the whole kit, and I was driving a brand new Corvette. I had a red Corvette.
Wow.
And
where'd you get the money to pay for that?
Well, I was in the grocery store business. I've always worked. I've always had a job, and I saved up my money, got a Corvette, and got into real estate.
Wow, what color was the Corvette?
It was red.
Wow.
Do you have any idea what it cost back then, the Corvette?
I think it was probably about, $9,000 or something like that for
if that. Yeah.
A brand new Corvette, $9,000.
And you took care of that baby, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, you walk out of the store, there's a dot on here. What is that? That's incredible.
So you got the fancy car and then got into real estate.
Got into real estate, and when I first started, I went to every training class that my office had. We'd go into the office meeting, and everybody was drinking their coffee. And I said, man, I don't drink coffee, but I've got to start drinking coffee. So crazy story. I put cream, sugar, and my broker came in and he said, no, real estate agents and brokers, they drink it black. So I drink black coffee ever since.
Wow.
That's how I got started in black coffee?
Got started on black coffee. And I did every single thing that they suggested that I did. I mean, back then, there were no cell phones. There was really no technology at all. So it was old school.
Yeah.
Old school is new school. We were knocking on doors, talking to people, holding open houses, working with buyers, working with sellers, taking floor time where we had...
What's that? What's floor time?
Well, floor time is when you would have buyers walk in and sellers walk into your office, and they would want to either go out and look at properties or they would want to sell their property. So we had the multiple listing book, which was really like a telephone book.
Wow.
And we had all of the listings in there, so we would thumb through it, find some properties, go out and show homes. And, back then there was only one-page contract. And it was all pretty much blank. We would write on that.
A lot of white space on that contract. When you were driving around, I was talking with a buddy. He had an uncle who got started in real estate sometime around the same year in the 70s, and he would roll around with a bunch of quarters. So that way he can make calls from the payphones. Because there were no cell phones.
Well,
did you have to do that? Or?
I think it was more like a dime back then, right?
Really?
Yeah, it was a dime. Yeah. Go to the cell phone. Go to the...
the payphone?
Go to the payphone, and I literally was doing everything that they suggested, knocking on doors, working with buyers, sellers, open houses, and I have a little bit of ADD, and so I got overwhelmed. And I decided, well, the first thing that materializes, that's what I'm going to specialize in. So I actually got an expired listing. That's a listing that has been on the market for, say, 90 days with another broker and it hasn't sold. And then I would contact them and ask them if they still wanted to sell their home and if they were happy with their broker and if I could meet with them to share how we can get their home sold. So pretty much became...
And that worked for you.
And
that
it
was like,
worked.
hey, this is my niche.
This is my niche. Because these people had a problem. I mean, they wanted to sell their home, but it just wasn't selling. It was sitting on the market for 90 or 120 days. They still wanted to move for whatever reason, to move out of state or upsize or downsize. So I was able to connect with them and help them solve their problem, get their home sold, and help them move, usually with family, out of state.
That's so cool. You've been doing this for so long, though, Tom. Like, what was it that initially was like, hey, I'm going to pivot out of the grocery business and into real estate?
Well, being in the grocery business, that was just something that I quickly realized that I only could go so far. Mm-hmm. I could only hit one, I would hit a ceiling. So I wanted to do something that the more that I put into it, the more that I would be able to get out, where there was unlimited opportunity, and when I could help and serve others. So it hit all those boxes and never looked back.
Wow. And so you've been doing this now since 1977. So you've been doing it, I mean, let's be real here, longer than I've been sucking air. So you've seen a lot of changes, but something I respect about you, like I don't know if I ever told you this, we were on a group call, or we were at a training, and it was all these younger people talking about social media and how you need to do this in social media, and how you can get business through social media, and how you can connect with people. And they had all these different strategies. I'm like, okay, I've heard that 1,000 times. I've heard that 1,000 times. That's old news. And then it came your turn to talk, because it was a panel. And I was like, okay, what's Tom going to say? And you just started spitting fire. The people on the panel started writing notes. Like, it was like you've always been a consummate learner. So what do you attribute to that?
Great question. I think it was from failure, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. When I first started, I failed miserably. I mean, it was 3 months. It was, I started in December 77, and then January, and then February and March. I was failing miserably. And a mentor came alongside me, John Aberg. He was the owner of our company, our broker. And he said, there's an event going on down in Southern California at LAX. It's called Positive Mental Attitude, PMA Conference. And I went to that, and there was the who's who in positive mental attitude. I mean, it was Clement Stone. It was Art Linkletter. It was Tommy Hopkins. It was Jim Rohn. And
Wow.
It just really opened my eyes. And what they shared was really 4 things that just always stuck with me. Number 1 is mindset. We have to have a think big, positive, growth-minded mindset, constantly always learning and growing. And then number 2 was how we spend our time. We have to spend our time extremely disciplined, doing the right things in the right order. It's kind of the Pareto principle. 20% of our activities will give us 80% of the results. And then the third is who we spend our time with. Jim Rohn said you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend most time with, and that's important. And then the last is just take massive focused action. It might always, so many agents and so many people really, they just want to get ready, to aim, and they never really fire. I'm just okay with getting out there and just firing and making things happen. So.
Yeah, and sometimes people, they'll fire really hard. Like, they'll have a leg day. They'll burn their legs out, and then they won't go back to the gym for 2 more weeks. But you said consistent focused action. So that means every single day making things happen.
Absolutely. And again, we fail forward. I mean, when we fail, we have to learn how we failed and what we did wrong. We have to get back up and just make things happen and correct. It's like the jet that's going from San Francisco to New York. It's actually only on course 10% of the time. It's just correcting. And the same is true with our life, our spiritual life with the Lord. We're all sinners. I'm a believer, and and I fail consistently in sin, and I learn from that, and I know that I have a Savior that loves me, and I know that I'll never be alone.
That's so good. I never
cool.
thought about it in terms of your spiritual life.
Because sometimes, that gives you a confidence too, knowing that you always have this foundation that, a lot of times fear and worry, that can immobilize you. But when you have this confidence, you have this foundation, it helps you to take those risks, right? Because you know, even if you fail, it's going to be okay.
The battle has already been won.
Yeah. Love that.
So cool. So cool. And let's talk about this, though. Do you remember your first deal ever, like your first transaction?
I do. It was a condo in South Sacramento on La Mancha, and it was $19,950. It was an expired listing. She wanted to sell. I went and met with her and put it on the market, and she was so happy because it sold in 1 week, and we had multiple offers on it, and we actually got $20,000 for it. It got bid up to $20,000 from
an extra $500. Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm curious though, what gave you that confidence? Was there something inside of you that said, "Hey, I can do better than what your previous agent did"?
Well, I think a lot of it was based on the company that I had. I mean, I really didn't have much confidence myself, to be honest with you. So I had to borrow confidence. I borrowed confidence from the company that I was with and from my broker. And life is like that. A lot of times we have to borrow confidence. Same way with faith. I heard it this last week in church that, sometimes if we don't have faith, we have to borrow faith. And we also have to be faithful for others so they can borrow and lean on our faith.
Oh, that's cool.
That's strong. That's strong stuff right there. So you sold the first one, because I've heard this from many top producers. They struggle for 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 9 months. But they've been putting in the work consistently, and then all of a sudden they start seeing success, and then they never look back. So it was how many months before you had your first sale?
It was 4 months.
4 months, and then how long till you had your second?
It happened right away. It seems like it always comes in threes, and I always share that with other team members and other agents. As soon as they make their first sale, I tell them, okay, it always comes in threes, so put the pedal to the metal, double down, because you're going to have 3 sales right in a row.
3 sales. So you had 3 sales right in a row, and you never looked back.
Never looked back.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, when we come back after the break, we're going to be talking about what real estate looked like in 1977 and how it's progressed through the decades. Kind of give some context on what today's real estate landscape looks like. Back after this.
Mike, you ever do laundry and you reach into one of your pants pockets and you find $1 or maybe a $5 or even a $20? Isn't that exciting?
It is. It's awesome when it happens.
Well, what if you found $11,000 in your pocket? Listen to this. Brad and Missy, they wanted to sell their home, and they heard about Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves real estate team on the radio, so they reached out to them. Guess what? Johnny and his team were able to sell their home in the first weekend, the very first weekend,
Wow.
and for more than even what they listed it for. But here's the great part. Johnny Jennings was able to get them $11,000 in seller credit. That's like free found money, and they were so pumped about that.
Yeah. So if you want Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves real estate team to help sell your home, all you got to do is reach out at 855-TOM-DAVES, or you can go online to tomdaves.com. That's Tom, DAVES.com. You can put in your address, and you can even get an idea of what kind of offers you can get on your house, the high end, the low end, or if you just want to be done, you just want a cash offer so you can move on, they can take care of that there as well. So reach out to Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves real estate team to find out how easy it is to sell your home. License number 581-837.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we are back with Tom Daves, and we're taking a trip through history. And he was sharing with us a little bit about his first deal, how he got started in real estate, and honestly, a lot about how his faith has supported him through a career that spanned multiple decades. But Tom, so what was real estate like in the 1970s? You said there was a book. You said you would drive around, no cell phones. Anything else that stands out to you? What were interest rates?
Well, interest rates, they eventually worked their way up into the 18% in the 80s. Okay. And we had to be extremely creative. We had to find a way to still solve problems. And I always believe that money exchanges hands when problems get solved. Buyers had problems. They wanted to buy a house. Interest rates were 18%. What did we do? We found assumable loans. Back then, you could just go in and assume someone's loan and just start making payments and take over those payments and start sending the checks to the bank and give the seller, a few $1,000s to transfer title, and you were done. So there were a lot of great ways that we could help buyers. There were ways that we could help sellers still reach their goal, buy and sell. But it was definitely fun and it was interesting.
It was different. My parents talk about, I think the first home they bought, they had to use seller financing.
Yeah.
Because the sellers were willing to take a lower interest rate. So the sellers were becoming the bank in the 80s.
Seller financing was prevalent. We had the AITD. That's
what's that?
All-inclusive deed of trust, where it was basically a wraparound where the seller would carry the entire amount of financing and take over the underlying note. So we had also, there was second carryback, there was a third carryback.
Oh, wow.
A lot of secondary lenders that would fund the cash. And unfortunately, there was also some people that were taking advantage. We've always had people that have tried to take advantage of buyers and sellers. So that's where we as professionals really needed to step in and make sure that they weren't taken advantage of and that there were no, weren't involved with any risk. So it was definitely the wild, wild west.
That is part of the problem. When people get creative, sometimes people get taken advantage of, right? Because you're like, oh, this is a great idea. Nobody's done it before. We can do this. And then it's like, oh, my gosh, you just totally got scammed. But so you got started in the 70s. You're selling through the 80s. By the end of the 80s, roughly how many people were you helping a year?
So I was serving on average about 10 to 12 families per month. And then the 90s came along. And of course, through the inflationary times, then we hit the recession. And there were actually a lot of foreclosures in the 90s. And that was my first taste of foreclosures, real estate REO properties where banks would take properties back from the owners. So I was able to I learned back then, one of my favorite sayings was from Wayne Gretzky: you have to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it's been. So
when I think of Tom Daves, that's the quote I think of. Like we need to get a tattoo.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of people get it wrong. They say you have to skate to where the puck is, but no, you have to skate to where the puck is going to be. And so during that time, I was single, and I used that quote in a lot of cases, dating. So
okay, you got to skate to where the puck's going to be.
Wow.
That's a whole nother story.
So
but I got involved with the banks back in the 90s, and I would just get in the plane and I would just fly, to Dallas, to Denver, to Atlanta, wherever. I would drive down to San Francisco Bay Area to meet with the who's of the banks to really help them get their properties sold, and it was fun.
So the 90s kind of laid the groundwork for what was later to come into the 2000s.
It did. Yep. So then in the 2000s, of course, everyone remembers, man, the economy was flourishing. Values were just jumping. And I got involved with flips, buying and selling properties and putting them back on the market and doing flips. I did hundreds of flips from 2000 to about 2008. And probably, I get back to my fail forward. I probably got a little bit too greedy and had too many of them going and just thought, man, the market's going to continue to just go crazy. Back then, I mean, you could not make any mistakes. The market corrected for any mistake that I could ever make. It made me look really, really smart. But then, unfortunately, when the market tanked in 07, 08, I had 36 personal flips in my portfolio that, basically I had to do something with. I was selling them and renting them and giving them away. I actually lost, almost $1 million. So it was definitely really, really humbling, and it was a great learning experience for me.
Well, what was your biggest takeaway after seeing massive success and then boom, this unforeseen instance? Never happened before in real estate.
Never happened before. I think the verse pride goeth before a fall. I just got a little too prideful. It's just like, man, things are doing great. I'm doing great, and probably could have been a little bit wiser with, with the commissions I was making. I was, buying big houses and cars and boats and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden when it tanked, getting back to that anxiety that I've been troubled with through the times. I was like, what am I going to do? What can I do? So I knew that the banks were going to start taking these properties back. So that was when I jumped back into the REOs, and I just got on the phones. And stuff happens when you pick up the phone and you just start talking to people. There's so many people and agents, they just get in paralysis of analysis, and they won't do anything. They'll just kind of hunker down. You need to just pick up the phone and start talking to people, and things will happen. So I called the banks. I got on the plane again, went to Dallas, Denver, Atlanta, LA, and I reconnected with the banks. And I'll never forget. I went to Freddie Mac in Dallas, and I would just call them up and say, I'm going to be in Dallas next week. Could I stop in and connect with you? And they say, well, yeah, if you're going to be in town. I'm like, well, yeah, I am now. So I would fly there. I met with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but I met with Freddie, and they said, well, your timing is perfect. We're looking for a REO broker in Sacramento. How many properties can you handle? And I said, how many do you have? And they said, 56. I said, yeah, no problem. So they listed 56 properties with me that week in Sacramento. I was buying computers and hiring staff and secretaries, and it was just like drinking out of a fire hose. It was
so cool.
Crazy.
But there's some key takeaways that I get out of that story. One of them being, one, you picked up the phone. Two, you showed up. And then three, like, you actually made it happen. Like, many people, you're right, would start with, hey, this would be a great idea if, but they wouldn't get on, they wouldn't. Mm-hmm. I was literally talking to a guy on this Sunday. We were at a networking mixer, and he was like, hey, I'm thinking about buying property in Oklahoma. I can buy 10 houses for what I can buy one out here. So I'm just going to buy 10. I'm going to figure it out. And my suggestion to him was, well, have you ever, like, flipped a home like long distance in Oklahoma before? Like, do you have contractors? Do you know anybody over there? He's like, no, I'll just figure it out. And I said, well, how about you do it once, see if you like it, and then try doing 2 homes at the same time. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it if I'm not. That plane tickets are expensive. Why would I buy one house? That just doesn't make sense for the plane ticket. I'm like, bro, like a plane ticket is a couple $100. You're buying a house for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. He wasn't willing to invest a couple $100 to flip one house, whereas somebody like you, Tom, gets on a plane and then shows up, and there's no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, right? There's no guarantees.
Well, one thing I always appreciate about you, Johnny, is you're constantly going to events, putting on events, and going to networking events, because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to connect with others. And that's one of the things that I've also done, and that's how I learned where the skate to where the puck is going to be. Mm-hmm. I would connect with other top agents and brokers throughout the country. Hey, the market is tanking. There's going to be a lot of REOs and foreclosures. You need to connect with, this is the vice president of, Chase Bank, or this is B of A. And we would connect and network and trade cards. And it was pretty exciting. It was pretty fun.
Another cool thing about your story is how you were seeing a massive amount of success. The market turned. And then in that turn, when a lot of agents were getting out of the industry and a lot of agents were struggling to even have a listing, you ended up finding an opportunity in that. I think it was Dallas. Is that where you flew to? And you walked away with 50-something listings?
Yeah, 56 listings. And so it was fun. And then a lot of it is to just provide value, really deliver exceptional results, because let's face it, it's an extremely competitive real estate market, competitive business market. So really had to differentiate and deliver exceptional results. and really make a difference to really help these banks. So we did everything from cradle to grave. We would go out and do the initial site inspection, determine occupancy, find out if there was a tenant or an owner. Little side story. I mean, it was crazy how you would have different people in the home. Sometimes, you'd meet an owner and they were really upset with the bank and mad, and they would, like deface the property before they would leave. But one time I'll never forget, I went to determine occupancy. The home had just gone in foreclosure, and there was an older couple there, and they were expecting me. I knocked on the door, and they had just cleaned the house. They had just vacuumed the carpets, and they were handing over the keys. We were like, oh, we're so sorry. So, so it's just kind of interesting, the different type of personalities that you would meet. But back to the bank. Yeah, we provided service from cradle to grave. We have contractors to go out and fix the properties up, get them ready to go and rehabbed on the market, get them marketed, and get them, get top dollar for the sellers. Not really that much different now. We need to differentiate ourselves, provide value, and make a difference, really identify what they're looking for and how we can serve them. So it was pretty fun.
Well, that brings up a good question that we'll discuss when we come back from the break. Like, are foreclosures coming? Is there a new wave of foreclosures coming with these high interest rates? Back in a second.
So, man, I know you've been having to fix some things around the house lately. I'm trying to
Lately, that's my life.
Right? I've been trying to repaint my house because it's a lot of work to try to get things fixed up, especially if you're maybe thinking that you want to sell your home and you're like, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I just want to be done. That's what Margie and Ben were feeling when they want to sell their house in Rancho Cordova. They wanted to sell in as-is condition, and of course, they wanted top dollar. So they called our friend Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves real estate team. He got them 8 offers on their house, almost $20K over list price, and it sold in only 17 days.
Wow, that's incredible. And you know what? Johnny Jennings can do the same for your family. There's a reason why they are number 1 in all of Sacramento, why they have so many 5-star Google reviews. If you're curious, hey, what would my home sell for in as-is condition? Go to tomdaves.com, type in your address. Right away, you find out what kind of offers you would get, even a cash offer. The website again is tomdaves.com, or feel free to call Johnny Jennings anytime. He's a great guy. You can trust him. 855-TOM-DAVES. License number 581837.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we're talking with Tom Daves about foreclosures. Are they coming back? If so, how are we going to be prepared? But before we get into that, Tom, about how many foreclosures, REOs, would you say you and your team sold back in the day?
Well, we were selling over 500 REOs per year consistently for 5 years. So it was over 2,500 homes. Wow. It was like drinking out of a fire hose. It was crazy.
So out of those 2,500 homes, did you have any crazy stories, like somebody pulling a gun on you or anything like that?
Well, unfortunately, I do have a crazy story where, back then when you went through a foreclosure, of course you would have to, when the bank would take it back, they would have to evict the tenant. So back then you could evict a tenant in evict the owner in 30 days. So we went through the eviction process, and then I would go out there every single week, knock on the door. This guy wouldn't answer. And then once we completed the court process with the eviction, I went over there. I had my locksmith and had the sheriff and knock on the door. He didn't answer. And so the sheriff said, okay, pick the lock. So the locksmith picked the lock, and then the owner opened the door quickly, and he was standing there with a .357.
Whoa.
And there was the locksmith, there was me, and then there was the sheriff. And I quickly retreated around the corner, and the sheriff stood there with the gun, and he slammed the door closed. And but it took probably about 12 hours to get him out. They brought in the SWAT team, the police, the fire department. There were helicopters. I mean, it was crazy, but they finally got him out, and we were able to get the property, get it secured, get it fixed up and get it sold to a new buyer with full disclosure. So it was definitely.
Oh, gosh. Have there been smoke bombs in the house? Yes. Yes, there has. Wow, that's crazy. So did you ever have any other guns pulled on you? Because I've had some situations, but I haven't sold nearly as many homes as you have.
No, that's the only gun I've ever had pulled on me. How about you?
Oh gosh. So there was one time where it was a miscommunication. I don't know. I can't remember now.
Miscommunication.
Yeah, well,
that's what it all comes down to, right?
It's a simple.
There was just a miscommunication.
Yeah. So the wife didn't tell the owner or her husband that I was coming by, and so I knock on the door. And this guy, he answers like, "Can I help you?" I was like, "Yeah, my name's Johnny. I'm here to meet with you about going over options to sell your home." And he's got his hand the whole time behind his back, like looks like it's in his pocket. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm your wife told me Mary told me to come by." And he's like, "Mm-hmm." And so he's like, "Just stand right there." And he slowly backed up, and he like kept 15 feet. And then once we warmed up, he's like, yeah, okay, you're cool. And then he had a freaking like 9mm in his back pocket, like in his hip. It's a hip holster. Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh.
People, they will do crazy things, and especially with something involving your home. I mean, your home is sacred. It's emotional. And back then when you would lose your home, actually another story had an owner. I just took this property. We just listed it. And got the owner out of it, went back, and he torched the house. He burned that house down. Yeah. Wow. I went to the sales meeting that Friday and told everybody about my new listing, and unfortunately it caught on fire. It got burned down, and one of the wisecracks in the office said, "Oh, that was the hottest listing in town."
Hottest listing in town. You
saw that one coming.
Vacant listing, vacant lot. Yeah. So let's talk about foreclosures, because you've gone through this in the 90s. You saw it in the 2000s. What do you foresee with these high interest rates?
Well, one thing I was going to mention is there's always an opportunity. No matter what the market is doing, there's always an opportunity for owners, buyers, sellers, and for real estate agents. And I'll never forget when the market started to correct in 2012, I got a contact from Blackstone Private Equity, and they called me, and it's the biggest private equity in the world, and they wanted to start buying properties. They wanted to, but at the time, unfortunately, they didn't really fully disclose or say that they were Blackstone. And when you're handling a lot of foreclosure properties, you get investor calls all day long. Hey, I want to buy properties. Hey, I want to buy, can you find me a deal? Can you find me a deal? And so I got this call, and they said, we're looking to buy a lot of investment properties, a lot of REO foreclosure properties. Can we meet with you? And I said, no, I'm good, thanks. And the guy said, you know what? We're Blackstone Private Equity. We're going to be at the Hyatt tomorrow. And if you want to meet with us, we're going to be there at 1 o'clock. I was like, oh, okay. So I met with them. And the next week, they actually flew me to New York to meet with the senior management at Blackstone Private Equity. I mean, I met with the CEO, CFO, Jonathan Gray, all of that. Wow. And then back to opportunity, they realized that there was a huge opportunity, and especially in the Sacramento market, and they started buying a lot of properties. They bought them, and then they held them, and in fact, they still have them. So lots of opportunity, whether it's an up market or a down market. Back to your question, I don't believe that there will be very many REO foreclosure properties. There will be a few. There's always people that aren't making their payments, and there's always banks that are taking them back. But if you think about it right now, I mean, we have had such a huge upside appreciation over the last 6, 8, 10 years. Everyone, literally everyone, has equity now. So they're not willing to let go of their home if they have equity. So there's not that many foreclosures, and I don't really see that many coming down the pipeline, but there will be opportunity.
There will be opportunity, yeah. So something I'm actually starting to hear more and more from lenders is they're starting to do a lot of cash out refis, because people are with inflation and just the current state of the economy right now, they're trying to maintain a lifestyle that maybe they can't support otherwise, and so they are tapping into like pulling out cash, so that way they can pay down their credit card bills. I was at one appointment in Rockland, and it was this couple, and they're I think one's from the U.S., one's from not from the U.S., and they moved here, and they both have tons of student debt, over $600,000 in student loan debt, and they were saying that, hey, based off their income, because now the student loans are going to have to start being repaid back, that their income is going to, like, they're going to have to make $8,000 a month payments on that student loan debt. And so now they're selling their home and trying to figure stuff out. So you're right, there is always opportunities. But yeah, man, if you're looking to have some financial advice, reach out to us. We got some great financial advisors that can help you. You don't need to, risk your future, your children's future, or your security based off of, fear.
And there's a lot of options for buyers out there right now. A lot of lenders have additional programs to really help buyers. Yes, interest rates are higher, but there's a lot of options. Lenders have available funding and financing to really help buyers get into a home, because it's still the American dream. And I'll also say that underwriting guidelines have loosened up significantly. So don't be afraid and don't miss out on buying a home and taking advantage of the appreciation, because you could always refinance later. Johnny, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, you're 100% right. So there are a lot of programs and opportunities out there, because the state of California specifically is encouraging home ownership because they understand how hard it is. But yeah, there's always an opportunity. If you're looking to sell, now's a good time. Interest rates are high, but there's a lot of buyers out there that are looking to purchase. If you're looking to buy a home, sellers are flexible. They're willing to give you some credits. They're willing to help you buy down the rate in order to make that happen.
What about real estate agents? Maybe they're listening and they're thinking about getting their license, right? Or maybe they're a current agent and they're trying to take their career to the next level. Maybe they're dissatisfied with what's going on. Yeah. What's your thoughts and your invites and your encouragement to those currently in the industry or those thinking about it?
Well, you're right, Matt. We are getting a lot of calls from people that do want to get into the real estate industry. They want to change careers. So there's actually a great opportunity for people just getting into the real estate market right now, because let's face it, there are changes in the industry, and sometimes the old guard has so many old rules and old ways of doing business they're not willing to change. So there's great opportunity for new agents that want to get involved with the real estate business, and we have all of the teaching and the coaching and the training and the mentorship to really help someone be successful.
Yeah, because like you said earlier in the show, they can lean on all of your experience and wealth of information. They don't have to necessarily go through all of those mistakes and all of those experiences to benefit from what you've already gone through.
Absolutely. And a lot of times it's just, for example, with our company, eXp Realty, we actually have 80 hours of live training each week. The good news is we have 80 hours of live training each week. But also the bad news is we have 80 hours of live training. And a lot of the agents, they want to spend all their time in training. Yep. And so what we do is we encapsulate all of the training that they need to do in a quick 1-week boot camp, so they can immediately start working with buyers, start working with sellers, and start, closing some deals and earning some money and having some fun.
Yep, having fun. Yeah, actually, that's what we're going to talk about when we come back, is the difference between agents who succeed in the industry and agents who are not succeeding in the industry right now, and some tips and tricks on how to be the latter. Back in a second.
Okay, Matt, so we all know that I am a planner. I love plans, just like I love spreadsheets. They're just amazing.
Right.
But I've also learned...
You have a master's degree in Excel,
oh my
right?
Gosh, yes, I do love it. But this is the thing that I've also had to learn is, like, I can make the best plan in the world, but rarely do things go according to plan.
That's right.
Unless, of course, you use our friend Johnny Jennings to help sell your home, which is what Dave and Melissa did, because they were retiring, moving out of state, and they needed the most that they could get from their home because that was part of their retirement plan. And Johnny Jennings was able to sell their home for $40,000 over list price in less than a week.
Hey, that's what happens when you work with our good friend Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves real estate team. If you're curious what your home would sell for, go to tomdaves.com, type in your address. Right away, you find out what kind of offers you would get, and listen to this, how much you would get if you wanted a cash offer, no matter what kind of condition your home is in. The website again is tomdaves.com, or give Johnny Jennings a call anytime at 855-TOM-DAVES. License number 581837.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we're in the radio studio today with Tom Daves, and something I really respect about Tom Daves is his level of action that he takes and that he does it consistently. One of the most striking examples of this is you doing 75 hard, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 6 times. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And for those of us who don't know, you mind sharing, Tom, really briefly what 75 hard is?
75-day hard. Well, I was going through a time in my life when I was actually, overweight. I was depressed. I was bummed out, and I just didn't really feel that good about myself at all. And I heard about this guy, Andy Frisella, that had something called the 75-day hard. So for 75 days, you have to do 5 things. Number 1 is pick a diet and stick to it. Obviously, no alcohol, and has to be a good, clean, healthy diet. Number 2 is to work out twice a day, once in the morning for 45 minutes, once in the evening for 45 minutes. One of those workouts has to be outside, rain or shine, right? Number 3 is drink a gallon of water every single day. That's
not straight, not get a big old gallon and just chug it, but throughout the day.
Throughout the day. And don't do it late at night just before you go to bed for you guys. And then number 4 is read 10 pages in a book. And then the last one is to take a photo of yourself every single day. But I think one of the most difficult things with the 75-day hard is you have to do this consistently every single day, all 5 items, or you start all over. So it's really kind of a mindset, and you just have to have the mindset that you're going to do it, and it really helps build confidence. So
that would be my question. What's your why? Why would you go through all of that? Basically like Marine boot camp. Why would you do that for 75 days straight 6 times?
Well, it was a complete 180. From the first time that I started that, when I was down and bummed out and overwhelmed, wasn't feeling that good about myself, to the very end, it really, really gave me joy. It gave me happiness. I felt good about myself. I had completed something. We had an accountability group of guys that I lost weight. I lost like 30 pounds.
Whoa.
And I just had... I felt really good about myself and a lot of momentum, and it changed my life. I had so much energy. It's crazy.
And you already are like the Energizer Bunny. I can't imagine you with more energy. So out of those guys in that accountability group, how many of them finished the 75 hard?
So about half of them finished it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it's
Was
tough.
there any of those that you did you ever have to restart?
I never did have to restart.
Wow.
I set it and forget it and just did it every single day. I'm not going to lie. There's an app that you can get and you can use that a couple of days send me some reminders. I was getting ready to go to bed and I had to finish my app. Oh, I didn't read my 10 pages. So
that's helpful.
That was definitely a help.
But it's really hard. Like for those of you who have never heard about this or never done it before, I personally have never even wanted to take on the challenge because it's a time commitment.
Time is a big thing.
For 75 days, like I've just lost friends. I'm like, okay, I'll see you in 75 days. I know you have your morning, your afternoon, and you got everything in between. So, but that's kind of what it takes in real estate. A mutual friend of ours, Brent Gove, has a quote that he likes to say: "Real estate's really hard if you go at it easy, but it's really easy if you go at it hard." And so, if you're a part-time agent and you're this is more of a hobby for you, you're going to really struggle in real estate. But if you are diving in, like burn the boats mentality, there is no plan B, that's where we tend to find agents have more success. Tom, what are some success traits you see in
Can you,
agents.
before we go to that, can you dive in deeper of why that is? Why is it hard when you go at it easy, and why is it easy when you go at it hard?
Probably the best analogy would probably be a carousel. So think about spinning a carousel, every couple minutes, and it's hard to get that thing rolling. It's hard to get that flywheel spinning. But once it's going, you just can tap it, and it'll keep going and going and going and going and going.
That makes perfect sense. I like that.
It's basically you've generated momentum at that point.
So the key is we are looking for people that are hungry, humble, coachable, and smart. They're hungry. They definitely have the desire to succeed, so they're hungry. They're humble. They don't know it all. They're going to listen to you, so they're coachable, and then also so they're smart. But it's crazy because, Johnny, you and I were talking about this. You'll have a guy or a gal come into the office, and you're just like, wow, she's going to crush it. She's going to be so amazing. And then nothing happens. Yeah. And then you'll have the guy that comes in and he's just kind of all, disheveled and showing up and then all of a sudden, well, I don't think this guy's going to cut it. So there's really no rhyme or reason. The only way you can really determine is just basically by their actions, I mean, you've been to a Little League tryout where, kids come out and they look like they have two left hands and two left feet. You don't know if they're going to catch the ball or what. It's really when it gets down to the heat of the battle, if they have the ability to suit up and show up and take action to make things happen. And I think it all just comes down to taking that action. Because we have an amazing training system, the teaching, coaching, and training, and the systems and the scripts. I mean, when I first started, dang, I wish they had that type of a system.
That's what we hear all the time. Agents that have been in the industry, 12 months, 14 months, years even, they're like, man, I wish I would have found you so much sooner. I wouldn't have had so much credit card debt. I wouldn't have struggled for so long because it's just a plug and play system that we really have.
Can I ask a question coming from an outsider who's not in the industry?
Sure.
What is the future of real estate? Because we see and hear a lot of different competition when it comes to technology. Is there a future when it comes to real estate agents?
Sure, yeah. So here's the thing. Are you familiar with the term the last mile?
Sure.
So the last mile, for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's the last mile. It's a logistical term. It's how it's typically used. And it's easier to get something from manufactured in China and to a shipping warehouse, like all the way across the globe in the United States. It's easier to do that, to make the product, to ship it and get it to the U.S., than it is to get it from the shipping warehouse to the person's door. That last mile is where the real estate agent comes in. And so a story that I've told before is I was on a listing appointment, and I show up. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and the husband's like, "Hey, let's hop in the car, and I'm going to tour you around this property." It was a piece of rural property. We get in. He's drinking his Michelob Ultra. He's drinking his Michelob Ultra, and we're going around, and we almost end up rolling the Jeep. And that's not something that technology, that AI can replace. Me driving out, meeting with him, touring the property in person, having conversations with them and strategizing with them in person, those are things that you can't, that the technology is not there just yet.
So you're saying in the foreseeable future and even into the distant future, that's still going to be a need. People are still going to want that personal touch, and they won't be satisfied with any type of AI setup or service.
Absolutely. Real estate, to buy a home or to sell a home, it's an extremely complex, emotional, and complicated scenario. And it really takes an expert to really take the time to identify the buyer or the sellers, find out their needs, and then really help those needs so they can reach their goal.
And what people are wanting more than anything is they want to know that they have somebody they can reach out to. They don't want to have to dial a company and have to hit 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, and
Isn't
work your way
that funny
through.
that we're still doing that?
Oh,
I had
crazy.
to call up some kind of medical issue. I still had to sit on the phone for 45 minutes, pressing 1, 3. I can't believe we're still at that.
Yeah, but people want that white glove concierge service where it's, hey, here's my real estate agent. When I call them, they answer the phone, and when I call them, I get answers. And that's just that they haven't. Technology can't do that. So when you think about, hey, my financial advisor, well, shoot, why don't we just automate that? Even a lot of travel agencies are coming back because people are wanting to, hey, contact them. And now they're using technology to their advantage. They're getting better deals, but there's still that personal like contact where when you're in an airport and your flight's been canceled and your 2-year-old's crying and you don't know what you're going to do, you can pick up the phone and call somebody. So does that answer the question?
Sure. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, Tom, you got your wallet out. What were you calling it, Matt?
It's the George Costanza wallet from Seinfeld, where he's got his change, his candy, but you have something even more important in your wallet.
Well, I have my goals. I learned a long time ago that if you have a goal, you have only about a 40 to a 50% chance of achieving it. If you write that goal down, it doubles. But if you write it down and have someone that is an accountability partner, it increases it to a 90 to a 95% chance.
Wow.
So you've written it down in pen on a 3x5 card and folded it, and you have it in your wallet.
I have it in my wallet. I have it all over. I have it in the office. I have it at home.
How often do you update it?
I update it once a month.
Okay.
So today's May 1st. It's time to update it. So, and it just basically starts with the high level, serve God, health, family, friends, fun, and my business. And I have, goals like my health goal, be 185 pounds by June 3rd, and enjoy, by biking, golfing, skiing, hanging out with family, and going to our cabin, Tahoe, Hawaii. And then I have some monetary and some income goals and some financial goals, but it really helps me, and I have a great accountability partner. We have a daily text every single morning, just different activities that we're going to complete each day. And it really helps. It makes the difference. One thing that I added is by the end of each day to write down my major accomplishment for the day.
That's
and
strong.
I've done that for a month now, and just to look back over April, because what's that saying that you achieve far less than what you think you will in 2 years, but for more than, help me out with that.
Yeah, then far more than what you'll accomplish in like 10 or something
10
like
years,
that.
yeah. So by looking back every month at the accomplishments that I've achieved each day and each month, it's kind of cool, because a lot of times you think, man, I'm just spinning my wheels, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, you're an inspiration, Tom.
Yeah.
You've done great. A lot of wealth of information to get from you, buddy.
So thank you so much for coming on this show. Team, if you want to reach out to Tom, just go to madeformoreliving.com. We'll get you connected with him. If you are looking to buy or sell, or if you're an agent looking to get in the industry, we're happy to make that introduction and get your career launched. See you next week.
Hey, don't leave today without getting an offer on your home, no matter what kind of condition it's in, no matter what kind of repairs it needs. Go to made4living.com. Find out what kind of offers you would get, the low and high end, or how much you would get if you wanted a cash offer today. Again, the website is made4living.com.